2006 F350 with a 6.0. We're going to be working on cleaning the turbo on here. So we're just going to go ahead and get started removing it. Okay, I'm going to start over here with the airbox. And we're just going to kind of wiggle this up. And it's going to pull, it's sitting on some rubber grommets down there, but once you kind of separate these, we can pull this kind of straight up and out of there and get this piece here out first. Okay, and those tabs set down in these on the front and back, so you have to, like I said, kind of lift them up and separate them and push them out of the way, and then you can actually lift it out of there. So we're just going to go ahead and remove this connector here. We're going to go ahead and remove this connector right here. It's a little bit stubborn, and once we get that, we're going to get us a 8mm and just loosen this right up here. Okay, so just loosen that, and now we can go ahead and move this piece here completely out of the way. We're going to go ahead and take a take our negative cable off here on both sides. Okay, this harness piece up here is going to get in your way. You're going to have to pop these little rivets and snaps, and it actually goes, it routes under here, but I had taken this out previously where I can move it out of my way, and I just like to push it plumb up here somewhere and get it way entirely out of my way so it's not affecting me. So you need to pop that out if you hadn't already, and I hadn't even put clips back in it because I've been doing other things. So the next thing we're going to want to do, we got a bracket right here that's going to have a couple of 8mm going into this back side. Now I'd already removed mine, and I just didn't even put them back in. You can do what you want, but I don't even have those in there, but there's going to be two 8mm coming right through the back in this plastic housing right here, so you'll need to take those out. Goes on that FICM bracket. And we got one more 8mm right up here, so we need to get those and then take this band up here. Okay, and on top of that, we got this hose going into this right here that we'll need to pop out, and it's going to be in there pretty good. You're going to have to give it a good little tug to pop it out of this crankcase. Now we can take that piece out, and here's these brackets you can see, and it's got these little brass inserts, and it screws into the back side of that bracket. It's really, I found it not to be necessary, but we're going to set that aside. So I think the next thing we're going to get on is our intercooler over here, and we'll probably just take that completely out. Okay, now take it loose from your turbo here. Don't take it loose back here at this part or you'll have trouble. Same way down here, just take it loose right here at the intercooler, and then we'll tighten those back later. And that's an 11mm. Okay, so we're just taking this intercooler pipe off of this side, and definitely take this opportunity to clean and degrease these boots while you have it out there. So I think we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to remove our turbo tube. We got a couple of 10mm up on top. We got an 8mm right down in there. We'll just get that 8mm loose, and we'll go ahead and take these top. You may need a little, I use a ratchet wrench because there's not a lot of clearance up here. And don't lose your gasket, and make sure you got an O-ring on that one down there. We're just going to get that piece out next. Okay, so now we just get this connector here. It's got a couple tabs you have to pull out on each side at the same time and pull it back. Just be careful not to break it. Okay, now's a good time to spray some WD-40 around this band. It makes it easier, and the one over here as well. Now you notice on mine, I don't know if it'll be this way on yours, but over here I can get to this 11mm easily on this side, and then I come through this side right in there. You can see I can get to that one from up here, and I'm just using an extension to get right back in there. So we're going to go ahead and get in here and loosen these two bands as loose as we can get them. Get them sprayed with WD-40, and then they'll just pop right off. Okay, so here I am positioned on the band on the back side, and if yours aren't positioned this way, make sure to put them back this way because it'll be a lot easier on you. And we're just getting this band here with a short extension. Okay, I just got in here, popped that band up with a screwdriver. Just removed that part just by pushing it, and I just slid it up here on the front out of the way. Okay, a cushion or some cardboard will come in handy when you're climbing up in here. Now, all I did was get a screwdriver in there and pop that other clamp loose, and just kind of pushed it out of the way there. So we're going to go ahead and move on to these turbo mounting bolts. There's one right there, and we've got another one. Let me see if I can get you in here. No. We've got another one right down in there. You can see right there. That one right there. So we've got a couple right up here on each side of this we're going to get first. And I just use my little 10mm ratchet wrench because it seems to fit in here just fine. So we're going to go ahead and get these loose. Okay, now we're getting the final one that's in the back here. I know my light just shut off, but there is one that's in the back that is the more difficult one to get to, and I've kind of got my ratchet positioned on it. You can see my ratchet. I've come from this side with a little extension, and it's like in a really hard to get to place. Let me see if I can get my light back here. And it's really difficult to kind of show this one in the truck, but there is my ratchet right there. Like I said, I've just come from the other side and we're getting that one. So I've got my hand around the other side and we're just loosening that. And I'm just using a little ratchet with an extension on it here, just like so. Like I said, coming around this other side and getting to that, and then we'll go ahead and get that out of there. Okay, with those three bolts, we're ready to pop this loose, and you have to kind of lift it up off of that turbo spout, and this back Y pipe over here is going to be very tight, so it takes a little bit of wiggling, but with the three bolts it is loose and ready to come out of here. Now I really don't have much of a plan when it comes to removing this like this. Now I noticed that it is way easier having this alternator out of the way, which is not real difficult to remove, but it can be worked out of here because removing that's just more stuff to have to put back if you're just strictly going in to mess with the turbo. So I'm just gonna wiggle it and flop it around and see what I can figure out here until I can get this thing out of here, but I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on it. I'll start taking stuff off if I can't get it to cooperate. Okay, this thing actually came out of here a lot easier than I remember it coming out the last time. I just basically twisted it and kind of oriented it upwards a little bit and brought it right out through here. It wasn't too much trouble. Okay, so we're going to put marks on everything. Let's see, the first thing we're going to take this band off, this 11mm, and I don't know what to expect. I know I was getting no power. You know, the truck seemed like it was running really good, but just wasn't getting any power and acceleration. So we're going to see what we got in here, and I've already put a mark as to where the clamp lines up. And I'm going to mark these halves as well when we split this apart here. Okay, like I said, you can WD-40 these clamps and just kind of get under here with a screwdriver, and usually they'll just pop up. Okay, so we just got us a mark on there. Now we're going to take and whack this thing with my rubber mallet and see if we can get this to separate. Okay, I had to get this thing down here so I could get serious with it. But this is what we got when I opened up, and to me this doesn't look too bad really. So I was really expecting this to be really kind of a lot more carbon than this, and everything seems to be moving. You know, I'm going to clean it up, but doesn't really look too bad, you know, from what I'm seeing. Okay, so as I'm looking down in here, I can see some pitting as I took all these pieces off, so thinking maybe these were bonding a little bit. So we're going to try to clean this up and polish it as much as we can. And I guess everybody seems to be putting a little bit of anti-seize in here, but you know, with the heat, I can't imagine anything holding up in here long. I'm sure that once you crack it open again, that anti-seize is going to be gone. But we'll try to clean this up as best we can and clean up our little pieces here, and clean up this ring over here a little bit and just see what, maybe it's just been setting and they're just kind of sticking a little bit. We'll see what we can do with it after we clean it up. I'll follow up here. I'm just going to be using some little Scotch-Brite pads and a little wire wheel on my Dremel. Okay, I've cleaned this up quite a bit and cleaned this surface here, and I've just been using a little wire wheel and my Dremel. I said cleaned as best I could. I'm just getting ready I'm going to put a little bit of this anti-seize around here and on these surfaces and around here. I've seen other people do. And I'll put some where the pins are going to go. And I've noticed that there's quite a bit of pitting, and I thought, well, I've got my other motor, I'd take that one and look at it, and it's no better. If anything, it was worse when I looked down in there. So I believe I'm just going to stick with what I got over here and clean it up as best I can. So I don't, you know, I'm starting to think that I expected it to be a lot worse when I got in here. So I'm starting to think that this is not my no power problem, but you know, it's not going to hurt a thing in the world. So I'm just going to get the anti-seize on here. And while I'm at it, I think I want to put some around this lip here where it goes back together. That thing was really a pain to get loose. So I think we're going to do that. I'm going to start putting these back in and try to get this back together. Okay, and I've just put a light bit of anti-seize down in there, and I put a little bit around here. I was only using just one little packet, so not a lot. And you can see how I've got my little slot here. I've kind of got that oriented about halfway-ish. And then there's our little notch or a pin right here. And I think while I'm at it, I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize, like I said, around this surface because it tends to want to stick. And like I said, so we've got the pin here, we got this slot about right here. And it really helps if you just mark everything as you take it apart so you don't have to mess around with it a lot. But I'm just getting ready to pop this back together here and get this band. I guess we need to slip this around here, kind of get it out of the way. Okay, so I've just tapped this down fully, and I've also, like I said, I got a mark right there on my clamp, so there's no confusion. However, I need to get the nut that goes on the top of that right there. Okay, I'm just going 155 inch on that big clamp there. Okay, so the last thing we have to check is to make sure we didn't get nothing in a bind. I've just got my heavy duty magnet here and it is working this back and forth fine. Also, you can see it working the fins. So no, I didn't get anything in a bind there. So now I can just pop this thing back on and just oil that O-ring back up where you stick it in there, and put your little snap ring. So all you need is some snap ring pliers to take that out. There's your little snap ring. Okay, so we're just setting it back in here, and I just start out setting it just like that. And I'm just going to go back there and tilt it up and work it back around. The big pipe is no trouble, but this pipe over here doesn't have no movement to it, and it's always quite difficult. And it may be that I have to loosen up my exhaust manifold bolt just slightly if it gives me too much trouble, but I'm going to see how it does here. Okay, so I was working on putting this back in, and this Y pipe just kept giving me trouble, and it was just relentless, not giving me any slack whatsoever. So after fighting with it for a good while, I climbed underneath, loosened both of the bolts on the exhaust manifold, and it just basically fell into place. So I may just start doing this every single time I put one of these turbos in. I mean, this just, I don't know, I've put them in and they squeeze in there, and then sometimes, like I said, the big pipe is no problem, but it's the Y pipe that wants to give you trouble. And they're just, I guess I had it so snug that it just wasn't room, and I knew it was snug getting it out, so I kind of figured it was going to be problems getting back in there. So I just took it loose from the exhaust manifolds, and it's basically no problem. I mean, it took me 5 minutes to take those bolts loose, and when I've been up here fighting with it for 30 minutes. So, you know, it may work in your case as well. But now finally I can go ahead and get these bands tightened down. I'm going to go 108 inch-pounds on those, and I'm going to get my turbo bolts back in. Okay, so we're just reinstalling this turbo tube here now and getting our gaskets and stuff back into place. Got that 8mm down there and the 2 10mm up here. Okay, now we just got our 3 turbo bolts. We're going to start getting them. Got one on this side, on the other side, and one in the back. Okay, so now we're just going to reconnect our VGT here. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get our intercooler back on here. And we have cleaned and degreased these boots while we had it off and checked it out, and they appear to be okay. So we're going to get this back on here into place, and then we'll get this torqued down. Okay, so we're just tightening both of these boots. We're going 106 inch-pounds, and that's the last thing we'll do is start getting our air intake back in. Now I've already got my exhaust manifold bolts, those ones I took loose to adjust that Y pipe back there, by the way. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and just get our intake stuff here back into place. Okay, we just put this into place. We're going to tighten that 8mm. We just pop this hose back down into here, and now we're ready just to get our next section in here into place. Well, I like to get this section together before I pop that down into place. Just seems to make it a little easier. Okay, we're just going to connect these wires we've got here. Got one going right here, and then we got the other one that's just going to wrap up to the top here. Make sure all of our clamps and our hoses are tight. Okay, so we got all of our components back on here, and that's going to conclude this video. Said we have successfully taken that turbo off and cleaned it out, and we've got everything back together here. So hopefully that has been helpful, and I thank y'all for watching.